Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Hold on, please. Okay.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Just do that, please. Where the hell am I again? Let's do some music.
Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
Okay, so we at least got the song on for you today. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac, Jack, and James Debate Show here every Saturday at 8 a.m. Hoping to bring you some of the best debate topics that you'll hear today. So anyway, I'm your host, Mac, co-host Jack, and the J Train himself, James Martin. So let's get it going.
That 45 seconds in, Mac, we're getting that's what I love about this show. The viewers get to see us work through technical difficulties before the introductions. That's why we're different from any other show on the air.
Not only that, because of the ducks in the back, too, Jack. That helps us.
Yeah, I'm trying to chase them away. I mean, I'm trying not to look over my shoulder and say get lost. I mean, the ducks are going to find another place as the show goes along. Okay.
So, we'll start off with one of mine. Bill Belichick, of course, everyone knows that he was expected to go into the NFL early as next year. But, Jack, if Bill Belichick has a good year, he took his family with him, is he going to stay?
I think he'll want to go back into the NFL, but you never know how the year plays out. You never know how much he might enjoy himself. He might have a great time. What happens if the team becomes a playoff contender by the end of the year for next season? They're not going to be one this season. That the team's really in an upswing. They could get a great recruiting class. I mean, we keep talking about Belichick wanting to go back into the NFL, Mac, James. And why are we talking that way? Because we say, well, he's going to want to go back and get the regular season win record. But wouldn't it be a great thing if Belichick, a great story, went to college and won a national championship? Maybe a bigger debate question, and I didn't even think of this beforehand, otherwise I would have suggested it. What would be more meaningful to Bill Belichick's legacy, guys? Winning another Super Bowl or winning a national championship in college. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, if he wins a national championship in college, that's bigger than winning another Super Bowl. Because if he wins another Super Bowl, it's number 7. You could say, well, he won it without Tom Brady and the other players he had. But just think of it, at his age, going back to college and winning the national championship. I mean, that would blow you away.
Yeah, definitely would.
Yeah, look, let me say this. I guess we got to consider, we have to pose the question, what is successful in college? And then you have to look at the team you're playing for. I mean, North Carolina hasn't won an ACC championship since 1980. And so, and their last season was 6-7. So success technically would be having one more win than they had last season. But for Bill Belichick, obviously, you're coming here with championship pedigree, and you want to be able to win and win, like Jack said, have a national championship with a team like this, especially with a team like this that has never won a national championship. I think their best season was in 1997 when they went 11-1. They went 11-1, and the team in front of them was 11-1, but it was the team that beat them was Florida State in their same division. And they went on to win the Super Bowl, but the Hokies went on under Mac Brown, went on to win the Gator Bowl 42-3 and against the Hokies. But my thing is right now, so he's got to figure out how to win and how to relate to these young players. He's 72. He's got championship pedigree. He can walk into a room and show off 6 rings. But these kids want to know, like, what can you do for me? You know, these kids have NIL. You know, can he sustain that? We see Nick Saban says he wants to, he wanted to leave immediately when NIL came out. I mean, people could say all they want why Nick Saban retired. It's because he didn't have control. He didn't have control. Bill Belichick is the same type of coach. They're best friends, as a matter of fact. He's a control freak. He didn't want anybody knowing nobody wants to know. Wants their team, their business out. But this guy was extremely tight. And had control on players. He was a GM. So he knew when to get rid of players. He knew when to keep players. I just don't know if it works out for him like this here in college. I'd like to see him stay. I'd like to see him try to win a national championship, but it may not work out. And like you said, Jack, he may want to come back. And in the back of his mind, without having Tom Brady there, it didn't end well. It didn't end well at all up there the past few seasons. And somebody to have that type of winning pedigree, he may want to go back. It's just in him. It's anybody that competitive.
Would he have the option? Let's say he has a great year in college. They don't have to make the playoffs, anything like that. But he has a really good season. Everyone says it's a big success. His situation is the same going back to the NFL. If they're scared that he might command too much power, if they were scared before, they'll be scared again. His situation, it just takes one owner. You want to know something? It takes just one strong owner to make the decision. It nearly happened in Atlanta, but the people in the front office would argue with the owner there. No, for whatever reason, they felt threatened by Belichick. Belichick could say all he wants. No. He could work along with other people. He doesn't have to have the final word. Of course, he doesn't have to have the final word if he's working with someone who he knows he's close with, is in line with him. He knows indirectly he'll get the final word.
You just mentioned Atlanta. That shows to me that he wanted to stay in the league. If he wanted to go to college immediately, he would have went. He wouldn't have tried for Atlanta. He really wanted to stay in the league and coach somewhere. It's in him. It's in his blood. I'm pretty sure these guys spend like 16, 20 hours a day. It's hard to get that out of you. And I'm not saying they're not going to do that. He's not going to do that in college. But he's probably trying to figure out a way to go ahead and find some level of success where he's at now, biding his time to get back into the league. I think he's going to want to go back.
But when you're coaching young guys coming out of college, he might really enjoy himself this year, saying, look, I love being around these kids. They're coming back next year too. Why do I want to go elsewhere? I love it here in North Carolina. This is ideal for me. I've been happier than I've ever been in coaching. it's unpredictable how he's going to feel. You know, we're talking positively about what could happen. What happens if it goes backwards for him? He only wins 3 games. He's not going to be in any more demand in the NFL. But you want to know something? They could have a losing season in college, and he could just call it a rebuild, and it still would take only one NFL owner who'll say, look, this is Bill Belichick. I don't care what he did last year in college. We know what he's about. Then the question is, you know, would he go back after one losing season, or would he feel, look, I don't want to leave like this. You know, we could straighten this thing out here at North Carolina. There's so many variables at play here. I don't even think he knows the answer. I really don't think he knows the answer himself, or is bothering to even analyze it.
That's the thing, though. He has to win. There can't be no losing season. He left losing. He left the league losing. So there's no opportunity really much for him. He's got to win. Because, I mean, and at North Carolina. Because, I mean, he's not like he went to some major program and, you know, and started taking over. He went to, again, to a team that hadn't won an ACC championship since 1980. So he's really trying. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The Patriots didn't win a Super Bowl until he got.
Wait. What do you mean he has to win? Didn't you? Correct me if I'm wrong, James. Didn't you advocate for Mike McCarthy to get the Saint job at coming off a 7-10 season?
Yeah, but he had one losing season. After how many losing seasons did Bill Belichick have?
How many winning seasons did he have? His whole body of work.
No, we're talking about body of work. I'm talking about the most recent past. I'm just saying the most recent past.
Mike Vrabel got hired by the Patriots. Didn't he come off a bad season with Tennessee? I mean, he was off last year, the year before that.
But I'm speaking about a guy that didn't get a job with the Atlanta Falcons. I'm speaking about a guy that had 3 unsuccessful seasons. James, after Tom Brady left.
James, the reason why he didn't get that job, don't forget, Robert Kraft kind of put the kibosh to that. He kind of was the one that said, he's not, he's a too strong a coach or whatever it was he said. So here's your you thought was your friend and your owner, and he's kind of telling the Atlanta owner not to hire him.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, what else? I'm not saying that that's a part of it. So, I mean, are they colluding to keep him out of the league? Who knows? I'm not saying that, but I know he probably wants with somebody. If that even more so tells me he wants to go back to the league and stick it to somebody. If that happens, I would definitely want to go back and get in the league. And like Jack said, if he has a successful year and some team takes a chance on him, I think he has an opportunity and he does it. I mean, but at this juncture, I mean, I think he has to win. I think he has to win in order to get back into the league. For a team to say, if all that's true about him having being too strong of a coach and that kind of stuff, and the different things you got to deal with and contend with, I got to see that you're winning. It's like with players, like Aaron Rodgers. He lost a step, but he got to deal with the baggage with you too. And I don't want to deal with that. So I need to see that you're winning in order to deal with whatever other stuff that comes along with you. You got to win. You got to win. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got to show that you can show some level of success again, and then maybe I'll think about giving you a coaching job. But I think he wants to get back in.
Okay. James has a pretty good question here about Shedeur Sanders. Will he be drafted in the top 10 or fall to the recent label of being brash and arrogant? Let me add something else to this. Deion Sanders. If they're not utilizing him correctly, I imagine Deion will have something to say. Yeah,
look, the fact that someone, I've heard this story before. It doesn't have to be Shedeur Sanders. I've heard it with several different players where somebody puts something out anonymous. They're always going to be anonymous, and they're never going to put their name to it, but they're going to say these types of things. And that may very well be true. I think Shedeur Sanders does have moments where he's brash and arrogant. But I've seen a lot of great players have that possess that type of mentality, attitude. Now, flashing your watch, showing off your money and that kind of stuff, that's a whole other thing. I don't know. But does he possess other qualities that would make him a great leader? Yes. I mean, the man's very smart. He's accurate as a passer. He's loved by his teammates. And I think that he has that, and I think he has a level of confidence that would allow him to be a great leader there and sustain through bad times, especially if starting out as a rookie quarterback. He's going to probably go to a team that's not going to be good. But past 2 seasons, we've seen quarterbacks come into situations where their teams were bad the previous season, but they turned it around 180 the next season. So there's a possibility that can happen with him as well. It depends on what the coach situation and what the acquisitions of free agents. That said, I think he succeeds in in a place like New York. I think the Giants, I think he could be a great quarterback there. I mean, the situation wasn't that great before that. I think his mentality probably goes well, not maybe with the organization, but with the city, the fan base, because they want to win. And I think that's somebody through bad times, if they're not going to win with him in the early juncture, I think that he could take whatever's coming at him in the media, because the New York's media is brutal, can be brutal. And I think if he doesn't go there, I don't think he's going to fall past number 7 with the Jets. Teams that need quarterbacks, Shedeur is too talented of a player to pass him up. If you pass him up, a lot of teams made mistakes with Lamar Jackson, where a team had to come up out of the second round.
Oh, he's not. Oh, he's not. He is not Lamar Jackson. Come on.
I'm not saying he's Lamar Jackson, but
wait. Let me cut.
Hold on. Let me say this. Lamar Jackson wasn't Lamar Jackson in that year. Everybody thought he was not a quarterback. Everybody thought he was a wide receiver. So I'm going to say he definitely has talent, and he is considered a quarterback, and so he definitely should be considered in the top 10. You don't have to take him number 1. You don't have to take him number 3, but he shouldn't fall past 10. I don't think he's going to fall past 10. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Jack.
Yeah, the Jets, now it's becoming apparent to me he's probably going to be that number 7 for the Jets. Probably. Jets would be absolutely foolish to bypass him. It would be a dumb thing to do. I mean, like last year, when Brock Bowers was there for the Jets, they passed him because they were picking on need. I mean, come on. I mean, don't make the same mistake again. But we're going to have an idea what teams are going to do before the draft, more so because there's certain quarterbacks who are still out there, like we were talking about at Justin Fields. I think it was before the show, the beginning of the show, I forgot. But so we're going to have an idea. If the Jets get Justin Fields, for example, as the quarterback, that means they're not drafting Shedeur Sanders this year. If they get a certain veteran like a Kirk Cousins, I hope not. I really hope not. But if they do, then you draft a quarterback, okay? And obviously Shedeur Sanders would be the one to take. As far as his personality goes, I recall the Jets hiring Rex Ryan. His father, Buddy Ryan, was more arrogant than Deion Sanders ever was. I mean, Deion Sanders is bold. You could call him arrogant if you want. He's a handful. But, Buddy Ryan was obnoxious. I don't think Deion Sanders is obnoxious. I just think he's a loose cannon who says dumb things from time to time. Very stupid things Deion Sanders might tend to say, but they're not as mean-spirited as the things that Buddy Ryan did. Yet they hired his son Rex Ryan. It didn't scare the Jets off, okay? And the thing about Shedeur Sanders, though, he's had one coach his whole life, and that's his dad, Deion. And Shedeur Sanders is going to have to, do what the coach says on the Jets. You just sit him on the bench. If he doesn't, you just discipline him. The problem with these athletes are they don't get disciplined in a way. If you act up and you let them get away with it, they're going to keep getting away with it. You have an attitude. I'm the coach. You don't listen to me. You're on the bench. And if the owners have the coach's back, the GM has the coach's back, all of a sudden the quarterback is sitting. Guess what? He's going to start listening. He's going to say, wow, I better do what they say. Okay? And he's going to be that. He's probably that number 7 for the Jets, and not to take him and to go with Jackson Dart, Quinn Ewers were good choices for the second round. I think would be a real mistake. The only way you don't take Shedeur Sanders if by some fluke, and it's not going to happen, Travis Hunter falls to you at number 7, and then you look towards the second round, perhaps at you as a Dart. But I can't imagine, a team overthinking this because of Shedeur Sanders' personality.
Well, good morning to Richard and David. Glad to have you aboard, as always. Jack, you had a interesting topic with Dana White. Why don't you go ahead and explain that?
Yeah, Dana White, he's getting involved in boxing now heavily because the Saudis, who are taking control of all the big fights, they want to start a boxing league. They want to do things new. They're bringing Dana White in to follow the UFC model. I never really liked Dana White. It goes back a while, and I never met him, never talked to him, so it's certainly not personal. He tried to get involved in boxing a lot of years ago. People don't know that, through the Boxing Writers Association of America, being involved, contributing to, one of our dinners, which was the Academy Awards of Boxing. And it was a one-year thing. And then after that, you couldn't even get him to donate something for the gift bag, like T-shirts or whatever. He wanted nothing to do with boxing. He cut it off like boxing was the enemy after being all over, the sport the first year. So I didn't take a liking to this guy, and also what he was paying some of his elite fighters. But the more I think of it this week, the way he explained it, it might be a good thing, actually. I mean, I like the presidents of the sanctioning bodies, like a Mauricio Suleiman with the WBC, Darryl Peoples with the IBF. They're good guys. But when you think of these sanctioning bodies, Dana White wants to bypass the sanctioning bodies, make them irrelevant. He wants fighters to be fighting more. The best fights the best. None of this nonsense like Mayweather and Pacquiao waiting 5 years before they fight, when they're past their prime, and then it finally takes place. They got to fight immediately. They got to fight more than once. I mean, none of this, none of these gaps in space with fighters fighting only once in a while and avoiding their toughest challenges. And also the shows you go to live, they end so darn late. It's ridiculous. Sometimes main events don't begin until, midnight, or so on. By the time you get home, and then between fights, like Dana White's saying, there's such a big gap in time between fights. One fight takes place, now you're waiting 45 minutes for the next fight sometimes, just hanging around. He wants to keep it going like the UFC. Now, the UFC has passed boxing from everything I've heard. And I'm not a UFC fan, but from everything I've heard, except for the major fights, a big boxing match exceeds a big UFC match. But those are fun in between. And an example of what Dana White wants to change, Dmitry Bivol just beat Artur Beterbiev. He's the world light heavyweight champion. Now the WBC says to him, you got to fight David Benavidez. You got to sign within 60 days or you're going to be stripped of the title. Stripped of the title? This is a fighter, Bivol, who's done everything asked of him his whole career, and they're threatening to strip him of the title. I give people the best example of all, and this is football, okay? The Eagles won the Super Bowl. Can you imagine football was a year-round sport, but, it ended with the Super Bowl? And 1 month after the Eagles win the Super Bowl, they're told they have to play the Buffalo Bills within 2 months, they're going to be stripped of their Super Bowl title, and it's going to go to the winner between the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions. Can you believe that? But it's laughable. It's so idiotic. But that's what boxing is. It's a gutter sport. It's unorganized, And what do we have to lose with Dana White? Trying to do boxing leagues, trying to do this, trying to do that. Fighters are going to use the UFC Performance Center. Fighters are probably going to get paid less. The top guys are going to get paid less, but the guys who get paid little are going to get paid somewhat more. In other words, Dana White said more fighters are going to be able to make a living out of the sport, because you might not realize that 95% of the fighters have to hold other jobs. They can't make it on their boxing income alone. So, that might change. Let's see if Dana White can execute his plan. If he can execute his plan, it could be a good thing, because I'm going to be honest, I don't have no loyalty towards the people in boxing the way they run the sport. I mean, why should I? There's absolutely no reason for that. Not that Dana White is going to be any better to anyone, let's say, in the media. He probably won't be. Okay, I understand that. But the way the sport is now, it's been so messed up for so long, we tend to accept how dysfunctional it is, and we go along. I even criticized Frank Laterza, my co-host on Glove Fist. He says, well, he won the undisputed title. I said, why are you saying the guy won the undisputed title? He's the world champion. Leave it at that. Don't tell me he's undisputed. In the past, everyone was undisputed when there was one champion. So I don't want to hear, undisputed. Title's always going to be disputed, because if a guy wins an undisputed title, a few weeks later, he's going to get stripped of it by one of the sanctioning bodies.
Yes. And it sounds like the Ducks agree with you, Jack. So, bit of news that we haven't touched on. We touched on before the show. Seattle trades Geno Smith to the Raiders. This move makes almost no sense to me. I guess Geno and the quarterback went.
No sense for who? Both teams?
Well, yeah. Well, especially for Seattle. I mean, I know Geno and Pete Carroll were, quarterback and coach not too long ago. But what does Seattle do now for a quarterback, James?
Well, there's still a market out there. I mean, there's possibly Atlanta last night. I think Kirk Cousins had a meeting with Arthur Blank, and he wants out. So he wants to be traded. So that could be an option. And then you have other quarterbacks that are still out there that are viable. Russell Wilson can make a reunion back there. I doubt it. Justin Fields. But they can't do Sam Howell.
Russell Wilson. Yeah.
Sam Howell. Sam Howell is not the option there at quarterback. So we all knew that. He's a backup. So you're going to have to do that. You're definitely going to have to draft a quarterback. So I could see like a Jackson Dart. Maybe they're looking at Jackson Dart in the second round, or I don't know where they're picking right now. So where Seattle's picking, I think they're mid. Somewhere in the first round, but I definitely wouldn't take any quarterback in the first round outside of the first two quarterbacks that are being taken. And I consider, again, a second round or third round quarterback. And maybe if nothing works out in free agency, you have to play Sam Howell, and you're gonna have to get some other guy to back him up. But yeah, they have a plan clearly, because they let Geno Smith go for a third rounder. So.
Geno Smith, you got to point out he was going to become a free agent after this year. So really, in reality, Seattle either had to sign him to an extension, and I don't think that would have been a good idea, because I don't think he should be future quarterback of that franchise and to give him big money and extend him. I don't think that was the answer. So he was going to be there one more year, really. So they got a third-round draft choice for the one more year, and they see they can't sign him. And they can get one of the other quarterbacks on the market that are going to fill. And Sam Howell isn't going to start for them. He had a chance to get the job. They saw what he could do, when he was at Seattle last year. And he didn't get it done in Washington. It was his job with the Commanders, and it didn't work out. So, but look at the guys out there. There's Aaron Rodgers, possibly. There's Russell Wilson. You get the feeling that might be a popular reunion. You never know. There's Justin Fields. There's Kirk Cousins. There's Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I'm not crazy about these options. Don't get me wrong. But they're nearly as viable as Geno Smith for 1 year.
And absolutely. And Mac, let me say this. The Raiders really wanted him. Why? Because they're taking on his $31 million contract for this year, fully paid. They're paying it, and they gave away a third round option for this year. So that says Pete Carroll wanted him there.
Well, Pete Carroll takes a lot of pride in Geno Smith because he's the guy that revived Geno Smith's career. They had a great relationship at Seattle. When Russell Wilson left Seattle, Pete Carroll could have come under a lot of criticism for not getting along with Russell Wilson, but Geno Smith got slotted in and played really well for Pete Carroll. So it's like you say, Mac, it's about relationships, and there's a good one there with Carroll and Geno Smith, and maybe they can win with Geno Smith. Listen, all in all, he played well for Seattle. All in all, if you want to look at it that way, but of course, at the end, if he does have a good year at the end of the season, what kind of contract do you want to give him? I mean, would there be any market for Geno Smith? Is it possible he'd go elsewhere? I mean, I just don't know.
I think when he goes there, I think he's a bridge quarterback still. They're probably going to draft a guy like a Jackson Dart later, or some other kid that's out there later in the draft, because I
don't think so. I'll tell you why I don't think so. Because if they want Geno Smith to stay, and chances are they would if he has a good year next year, you can't draft a guy that early. What does it say to Geno Smith? You just don't do that. Not in that situation.
Yeah, he was 34, but he did complete 70% of his passes and 4,000 plus yards, 21 TDs, and 15 interceptions. I think part of the reason of their demise was that offensive line wasn't all that great. But I mean, even saying that, those numbers were actually pretty decent, except those 15 interceptions.
Yeah. So
Carson Wentz, he's another name. I threw out some possible names who a team could roll with if they absolutely have to.
So the Steelers, again, they make the playoffs last year. Don't go to the Super Bowl. I guess, anyway, from what I've seen, the Steeler fans are very upset with Mike Tomlin not being able to get his team there. So my question to you, Jack, is what do they do with Mike Tomlin? Do they hold on to him? Do they try to, find a way to trade him? What do they do?
I mean, who are they going to trade him for? I mean, we can make up any deal we want. I mean, what's from Mike Tomlin out there? Come on. I mean, there are no coaching vacancies right now, but when there were coaching vacancies, I certainly would have given a second-round draft choice for Mike Tomlin if he could be my coach. They don't want to let him go to Steelers. Their front office even said, they made it clear they're like they fear having to lose for another coach. They hate changing coaches in Pittsburgh. I mean, they have a phobia about changing coaches, and they've been successful from Chuck Noll to Bill Cowher to Mike Tomlin. Man, that's forever. Have I missed anyone in between? That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable, Mac. We're talking from what, 1970 or something? We're talking maybe about 55 years or something like that. They've had 3 coaches. I mean, that's great. Mike Tomlin has been tremendously successful, except there's a danger going stale. You know, you're winning each year, but you're getting bumped out of the playoffs in the first round. Yeah, unless they get a marquee quarterback that's a difference maker, you know, and another weapon or 2 on offense, that's not going to change. It's just not going to change. They don't even know who their quarterback is next year. You tell me they're flip-flopping. If they like Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, wouldn't they have committed to one of the 2 by now? You're our quarterback next year. Let's start getting ready the following season. But they haven't committed to either guy. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields don't even know who they're going to be playing for. And even the Steelers say, well, we like them both, but we realize we probably can't keep them both. And they haven't indicated who they favor over the other. I don't get what's going on there. And they're not going to draft high enough to get anyone. Are they going to wait for – has Mike Tomlin fallen in love with Will Howard, Jackson Dart, or Quinn Ewers feeling, well, we can get one of those guys? Does he see something we don't see in those guys, even though we think those guys could possibly be good? Is he really sold on one of them? I mean, what's their strategy? You tell me. I don't know.
Well, they made a mistake with the kid out of Pitt, Kenny Pickett. So, going back to the Mike Tomlin question, you just brought up something, Jack, that I really hadn't thought about in a long time, about how long the longevity of those coaches and their system. Maybe other teams should take on this moniker or take on this type of system, because when you look throughout the history, they have more championships or equal to the same amount than most teams that have changed out coaches all over the place. I mean, Dallas had 5, I think. They have 6. Patriots have 6. I mean, it's just I don't know. I mean, and with 3 coaches, that's still unbelievable. Maybe, I mean, I think it would be not them getting rid of Mike Tomlin. It's Mike Tomlin, whether or not he's burnt out, or whether or not he wants to leave.
He looks burned out, James. Doesn't he look burned out to you?
He looks burnt out for sure.
I'm saying to myself, why do you want to do this, guy? You've made a lot of money. I mean, at the very least, take a year off, and then if you get antsy, to come back. But it's so easy for us to talk. Look, he lives in the Pittsburgh area. He has to live there year round, and he's been there a lot of years. And I guess you get to be comfortable. You become like a robot. You get to work, 7 in the morning, and you stay there till 9 at night, and that's your life, basically. Maybe you catch a movie with your kids once in a while. Maybe you go on a vacation for 1 week during the year, but in the meantime, you're working the phones and, with your job. I guess it's a lifestyle. But Mike Tomlin they lost a little every year, the Steelers. I saw this happen with Don Shula and the Dolphins. The Dolphin fans became unhappy with Don Shula for years, even though they were making the playoffs all the time and getting bumped out. But there was a difference involved, guys. Jimmy Johnson was lingering there for the Dolphins to get. Who would come to Pittsburgh that would excite him? And please don't tell me Bill Belichick. That wouldn't be an upgrade. Please, no.
Look, I would say, I don't know who probably would come there, but I know most coaches don't want to. I mean, I'm thinking they don't want to leave like the way they're leaving. The way it was. They want to leave on top. I mean, you look at Bill Cowher. When he left there, he won a championship. And I don't want to be the predecessor. My predecessor left on top. I don't want to be the guy
they won the Super Bowl. Did they?
That's what I'm saying. He left on top. He was able to. I don't
remember that. I could be wrong. I'm not saying you're incorrect.
I think they won the Super Bowl.
I don't recall him leaving right after they won the Super Bowl. If we could check that out, I could be wrong. I just don't remember that.
Yes, it was Bill. I mean, what's the kid's name? He came out of my Roethlisberger. He was their quarterback, and the running back went as well. I think he retired as well. Is that not true?
Jerome Bettis?
Jerome Bettis, for sure. He retired right after that Super Bowl.
I don't recall that, but maybe you're right. But I don't think it's going out on top. Now, it's so hard to win one Super Bowl. It's so hard to get to one Super Bowl. What the fans in Kansas City, they're going to be getting spoiled if Andy Reid stays there a few more years. Are they going to be calling for Andy Reid to get fired and to be replaced? Because I'm going to tell you, with the Chiefs, they've been getting to the Super Bowl, it seems, routinely. And if you ask me now for prediction, are the Chiefs going to get to one Super Bowl in the next 5 years? If I had to say yes or no, I'd say no. That's how it is.
I'd almost strongly disagree with that. And the reason why I say that is because I'm going to put them in the same breath as the Patriots and Tom Brady. So you got that combination. You're always in the midst. When you have a great head coach and you have a great quarterback, you can change your pieces around everywhere else, man. It's just, and you see it. It's what happened with the Patriots. You see what happened with Kansas City. I mean, they lost Tyreek Hill. Even though I think that was a mistake on both parts, I think they probably should reunite. But they still won without him. They won without Tyreek Hill. But they could use a Tyreek Hill right now. That offense looks inept.
I don't
maybe
mean
that offensive line.
City won't be in the mix. Maybe I shouldn't say the next 5 years. Next year, for example, they have no favoritism at all. Because there's Lee Groves, a great boxing guy. He's actually in charge. I don't know whether you know this, James. CompuBox. When you watch a boxing match, you're seeing the punch counts per round.
Yes.
Lee Groves is one of the big driving forces behind that. He's a great writer too. The aura of invincibility is gone, but KC will be in the mix as long as Mahomes remains in prime form. Yeah, he didn't exactly look like prime form in the Super Bowl. That was what a bad performance. But he's a great quarterback. But when you look at the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Bengals, I got to believe one of those three come out of the AFC next year. They're so due for a breakthrough, those three teams. Even though the Bengals went to a Super Bowl a few years ago, I can't imagine KC being back in the Super Bowl next year and holding off Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, not to mention Joe Burrow.
Jack, I got to push back on that quarterback situation that you mentioned about him not looking in the Super Bowl. I think that's more an indictment on that defensive line. I mean, we can go back to 2007, Tom Brady, same thing. The Giants. It wasn't Tom Brady that was the problem. It was the Giants' defensive line that was the problem. That was
Mahomes,
giving them the business.
Those interceptions, terrible passes, throw the ball away, get sacked, whatever. But he actually contributed to the Eagle offense. He's an all-time great quarterback, Mahomes. He's an all-time great. I don't sell him short. I'm talking about one game. He himself was horrendous in the Super Bowl. His offensive line was bad. He himself was really bad.
I don't blame Patrick Mahomes for that loss at all. I blame, as you said, the offensive line, and even the wide receivers dropped some balls they could have caught.
Oh, fine. They all played bad. Say that, but it doesn't excuse Patrick Mahomes was terrible. He was terrible. I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, just focus on what he did. I don't disagree with any of these statements about the offensive line and some balls being dropped. What did he do?
No, he threw a couple of picks. You're right. One of those picks was phenomenal by the linebacker, Zach Vaughn. I mean, one you didn't even expect to even happen. The kid dove for the ball and got it. It came out of nowhere. But again, at the end of the day, they lost, and they didn't look good losing either at the same time. So I agree in that regard. But you
got to consider this too. When a team comes to training camp, they got a goal. And this past season, when the Chiefs came to training camp, the big goal was the three-peat. They were psyched. Now that they're coming back next season they come to training camp. The goal isn't as strong. The goal obviously is always to win a Super Bowl, but it's not as strong as before.
Yeah. So what is the goal? Make the playoffs?
No, so win the Super Bowl, of course. But the resolve, if they do win the Super Bowl next year, it's not going to be as historic as winning 3 in a row. The stakes aren't going to be as high historically. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So a little baseball news I'm going to throw in there too. Derek Cole getting an MRI on his elbow after feeling discomfort. And this is, I mean, I know it's early, but this is like the whole pitching staff now, Jack.
Yeah, I'll tell you. You see all these predictions, and you're looking at the Yankee 5-man rotation, and 2 guys are down already. Lewis Gill, the Rookie of the Year, he's not going to be returning until the summer. The summer, he's going to be out. And now Garrett Cole, who missed a good part of last season, he's having a little arm difficulty. So we're going to kind of have to see how that plays out. But that's very concerning because he's the ace of the staff. And, John Carlos Stanton hurt again. He's going to be out like a while. And it's you keep hearing about injuries, this and that. But especially with the pitching staff, which is a strength of theirs, it's concerning. What can I say?
Yeah.
Is that a common thing in the beginning? I mean, we haven't even hit the season yet. Is that common?
Some guys are more injury prone than others throughout a career. Yeah, I didn't even mention Carlos Rondon. He's been hurt on and off. And then the one guy they slot in who'd probably be healthy the whole time, Marcus Stroman, was terrible last year. But he's had a decent career. But last year he was dreadful, and the Yankees even left him off the World Series roster. That's how bad he was. Now, he's going to be slotted into the starting rotation, and he'll have a chance, to maybe recapture what he had. So, there are a lot of, question marks there. I mean, we tend to sometimes pick a team to finish in a certain position, and then, the injuries set in, and another team in the division can be healthy, and it just changes everything. But that's what baseball. Look, we come up with a football prediction on the team, but it takes just one player to go down with an injury, and then and who's going to be the backup to come in? Like we could, pick the Texans. The Packers to go to the Super Bowl like I did last year. I could just throw out names. Well, I'm not going to pick both again to go, that's for sure. But what happens if C.J. Stroud goes down with an injury, right before the first game and he's out the year? Jordan Love does. Let's say Jordan Love goes down. And if you like the Packers to make a run at the Super Bowl, do you still have the same faith in Malik Willis to carry the team? Not quite. Not quite.
Yeah.
Malik Willis did well as a fill-in. I don't mean to get on the Packer thing. I'm just giving an example.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
And then Vlad Guerrero. Yeah. Vlad Guerrero, you're mentioning baseball. He's claiming he asked for less than $600 million total from the Blue Jays. And they don't want to pay. And it's like, he wants 14 years to market to this, to that. I don't know. But
is that really a bad thing at 14 years?
He's it depends on the age of the player. If the player's 23 years old, he's a position player. It'll take him through age 37, and you feel he's a hard worker. He's not a lazy type guy. I would do it if he's a foundation player. if you feel he's going to play all the years. The problem is these guys were 26. They were in a 15-year contract. By the time they're 41, they're like kind of burned out. Look, I was critical, and I believe in accountability. I don't believe in saying something so boldly and not referring back to it, even though you could potentially be wrong. Look, the Mets signed Francisco Lindor to like an 11-year deal that goes through the 2031 season. Right now, that deal looks like it's worth it for them, the $31 million a year. He's a great player. I was extremely critical of the deal. What a foolish thing. But let's still wait and see. How many years does he have left on that deal? Like 7 years. And I did say the first few years of the deal, he would look like he's worth it. And he absolutely has. But what happens when there are 3 years left on the deal? And if he flames out completely and you're paying him $31 million a year for the next 3 years, people never look at the back end of these deals to know whether it's good or not. And, the Yankees are stuck with DJ LeMayo. 2 more years he has left, $15 million a year. Wasn't a bad signing for the Yankees when they signed him for 6 years, $90 million total. That seemed to be worth it for the Yankees. But he flamed out immediately in 2 more years. Giancarlo Stanton, he has something like 4 years left on, his contract. And it's hard to keep him on the field. When he's healthy, he produces. But he's out so much, it's like if the Yankees could get out of the final 4 years of the deal, they would do it at the snap of the finger now. And that's what we said with Geno
I don't
Smith.
think they will be able to get out of that deal, Jack. I think Stanton.
No, they can't get out of the deal. They're going to be in the deal. You eat money with 1 year left. You maybe feel okay. We tried to trade him. We pay some of his salary to another team. But when a guy has a few years left, no one wants that contract. You've got to basically live with it. And it's like working in an office. Are you going to want to pay a guy to stay home? Pay him every day? He's not producing the way you want him to in his job. So what do you want him to? You want him to file papers for you, take out the garbage, empty the garbage cans, just do something for you in the office. You got to pay him anyway. And you see he's not functioning and doing the job as well as you want. So you're giving him something to keep him busy, and that's what it sometimes is with some of these players. I mean, you listen to Keith Engel. We all love Keith, but Keith says, just get rid of him. You can afford to pay him. You're the Yankees. You got the money. Get rid of him. Bring in the next guy. What do you mean, just get rid of him and pay him the money, all that money he's owed? You want to keep sticking with him to a point to see if he can produce and do something.
You want a return on your investment, right? Exactly. Yeah, to some degree.
At least a partial return, getting something, back.
Right.
Yeah. So Lee Groves has been commenting, and when you get a chance, check him out because we do move along, kind of fast, and he's kind of behind us. So I just let the comments stay there for now. Let's see, we're almost done here. Anything else you guys would like to talk about?
The Geno Smith deal, you have to understand the extracurricular factors. People never understand the additional factors. From Seattle's viewpoint, he had 1 year left on the contract. Seattle had 3 options. One, extend them. Would you guys really extend his contract and make him your quarterback of the future? I wouldn't quite do it, not with Geno Smith. Okay? So option number 2, you could just let him play this final 1 year of his contract. Or option number 3, you could trade him. They weren't going to get a first-round draft choice for Geno Smith. No way. It's unlikely. They could have conceivably gotten a second from someone, conceivably, but maybe they wouldn't have. They had a chance to trade him for a third-round draft choice, which is some value. It's not tremendous value, but it is value where you can get a player who'll make your roster and maybe even start for you. So what do? Do you ride it to one more year with Seattle, and then, if he has a really good year, chances are he signs with someone else. If he doesn't, why would you want him coming back to you anyway?
Yeah.
So it wasn't. And if you're Pete Carroll is going to see if Geno Smith performs for him with the Raiders the way he did for Pete Carroll at Seattle, they'll sign him to a 2-year deal or something at the end of the year. They'll work it out where Geno will stay, and Geno will want to stay and be with Pete Carroll. So I can understand where the Raiders are coming from, but the Raiders are taking a little bit of a chance now. If Shedeur Sanders is available, they're going to bypass him, and they're going to take the running back from Boise State, Gente, who's going to be really, really good. So it won't be a losing situation for the Raiders. And so I mean, what do you do if you're Seattle? You're kind of caught in a little bit of a bind. So they decided to move on from him. And then enough of these bridge quarterbacks who we mentioned, who they could, go to, who could perform. Did they rebuild in Seattle? Because DK Metcalf is going, apparently he's going to be traded.
Oh, there's no if. They are rebuilding,
Yeah.
and they dropped all those players. They're rebuilding now, and that it makes sense. So the Saints are not in the same boat. They keep holding on to all this different stuff here and there with Carr. They're in rebuild mode, but they're delusional about the situation.
Yes,
I agree with you. I agree with you about Geno Smith. I think definitely it makes sense to get rid of him and get something that they got rid of $31 million. That opens up their cap space, and they got rid of they received a 3rd round draft pick, so they got more draft capital for him. And I just think, even though they don't have their quarterback right now, they still can rebuild. They can go ahead and start their process now. The Saints, meanwhile, are just not in that boat. I mean, I like the coaching hires. I think both on defense and offense that they have right now. But they still got to figure out what they're going to do with aging players on a defensive side, and they need to draft more offensive line help, and they need a quarterback. I think.
If Shedeur Sanders falls to number 9,
you got to take him. You got to take him. There's no way. And I love Spencer Rattler. I think Spencer Rattler is a developmental quarterback that they can sit on the bench, and he's Matt's gonna laugh at that. I'm telling you, Mac, I watched him. The kid's good, man. He needs time. Just like a lot of quarterbacks need time in development. And I think you as a head coach, you understand that.
James, you can't draft Shedeur Sanders if you like Spencer Rattler. It makes no sense. You get a bridge quarterback and then eventually work Rattler back into the starting role. If you really like Spencer Rattler.
No, I do like him, but I don't like him more than Shedeur Sanders. I'm going to trade Spencer Rattler somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to keep both. Right. I'm not going to keep both. I'm going to trade him. I think he's good enough to be traded and go help some teams.
Right. Okay, don't let me interrupt you here. This is the end of the show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Lee Groves and the other ones that joined us. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you next week on the Mac, Jack, and James Debate Show.